National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. The National Environmental Policy Act is often referred to as the foundation law for the modern environmental movement. Although in many regards it is a far-reaching law, it is limited in scope as it only applies to projects that use federal government funds to carry out an action. NEPA is made up of three primary parts: the establishment of national environmental goals and policies, the requirement for federal agencies to implement the goals and policies, and the creation of the Council on Environmental Quality, CEQ, as part of the executive branch. The best known product of NEPA is the Environmental Impact Statement, EIS. An EIS is created for large federal projects that could have a significant environmental impact on the environment. During the completion of an EIS, data on many facets of the project are gathered and presented to government officials and the public. An EIS must identify the environmental impacts of the proposed action, all adverse environmental impacts that cannot be avoided if the project is enacted, reasonable alternatives to the proposed action, how the local short-term benefits affect long-term environmental productivity, and identifying irreversible and irretrievable commitment of resources if the project is implemented. An EIS can take years to complete. Identifying alternatives to the proposed action is an important component of an EIS. An EIS must clearly describe the environmental consequences and the alternatives to provide an unambiguous choice for the agencies and the public. When an impact is identified, mitigation measures must be included. An EIS must consider all reasonable alternatives, including the no action option. Not all federal actions require the creation of an EIS. Prior to an EIS, an environmental assessment, EA, is performed. The EA is a study that helps to determine if a project has enough significance to warrant an EIS. An EA can be considered a mini EIS as it addresses many of the same concerns as an EIS. An EA may conclude that the proposed action does not need an environmental impact statement. This determination is called a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI. EAs should be of adequate length and depth to justify its conclusions. Most projects do not require the preparation of an EA, an EIS, or even to notify the public. Government agencies have a screening process to determine if a project must undergo a NEPA review. Each agency develops criteria based on the Council of Environmental Quality direction. If a project satisfies or does not individually or cumulatively have a significant effect on the human environment, and there are not any recorded instances where similar actions had no such effect, the project can be excluded from review. Those excluded are known as categorical exclusions. This is not to say the project is exempt from NEPA, rather it documents the proposed action does not pose a significant environmental impact. At the Kennedy Space Center, NASA implemented a system where impacts that could affect the environment are initially assessed by the use of an environmental checklist. The checklist covers several categories for a proposed action, including identifying chemical usage, any land disturbances, water discharges, waste generation, and demolition where asbestos might be involved. Once the environmental impacts are identified, NASA can decide if further reviews such as an EA or EIS must be performed. The vast majority of the environmental checklists submitted meet the definition of categorical exclusion, CE. The checklist also serves as a planning tool. Although a proposed action may be considered a CE, that does not mean there are no actions that need to be taken. Environmental permits may have to be obtained from state or federal agencies prior to the project start. A plan for managing hazardous waste may have to be created, or a survey on wildlife may have to be conducted. The Kennedy Space Center is in the middle of Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge. NEPA is an important law as it requires environmental consideration for proposed actions by all federal agencies. We'll see it as different than most of the other major environmental laws in both its approach and implementation.